Hi, Cory Giger, joined by Neil Rudel. Thought this would be a good time, Neil, to get together and talk about where Penn State is with its coaching situation. We'll talk about Bill Obrien maybe to wrap this up. But moving forward, first and foremost, what kind of coach do you think they should be going after for? What are some criteria that you like?
To me, I think right now the biggest thing you need is stability. I don't think there could be any uncertainty about a guy that you hire that you're afraid he's going to leave after a year and a half, 2 years, and worse, that his name's going to be coming up every December and he's going to be entertaining that. You know, obviously a lot changed with Bill Obrien once he took the job, but I just think they really need a Band-Aid and they need long-term stability.
Yeah, I agree.
That doesn't mean 46 years.
Right, I agree with that as criteria number one, but the top candidate you would think at this point would be James Franklin. And that would kind of contradict that criteria because James Franklin, they're already talking about him maybe as a potential NFL guy. And, you know, Art Briles from Baylor doesn't want the Texas job. Mora from UCLA apparently doesn't want the Texas job. So they may be looking at James Franklin. If you get too good of a candidate, then there's a good chance that he might want to stay a few years.
You know, I don't know that James Franklin's number one. I would say he's a top candidate. I think Al Golden would be at least as good. Because I think he would the fan base is really, you know, it's edgy right now because I think that they feel spurned by O'Brien and they're concerned that the next guy is not going to have that commitment. And I think the last thing that the fan base is going to tolerate is another hire that next December after 9-3, 8-4, whatever it is, all of a sudden that the NFL is looking or some other more marquee college is looking, and they're not going to get into this. Can you imagine if Penn State had been in a bowl game? Now I know that's one of the reasons O'Brien isn't here, but if you would have gone through this during December. When they're making preparations for a decent bowl game,
that's
or
what colleges,
maybe that would have kept him here.
But that's what teams do all around the country every year. I mean, this is not.
But that would have added to the confusion.
No doubt. Larry Johnson, by the way, did announce Friday afternoon that he is going to be applying for the job. A lot of current and former players would like to see LJ get that job. Do you think that he has a good candidacy?
I think it depends on what else falls. I mean, you touched on Briles and Mora at Texas, so maybe those guys are out of the mix. So, you know, if for example, Golden would decide to stay at Miami, if Franklin would get the Texas job, if Penn State, I would think, would want to talk to that David Cutcliffe. Also, has got a really good track record, particularly with offense.
He's 59. Is that too old?
No, I don't think so. It depends. I mean, this guy's got a tremendous offensive track record and has been done a good job. I mean, I think you need somebody who's been a head coach before. I think that. You know, I think we saw some things with Bill Obrien that had tremendous potential, but there were also some issues that being a first-time head coach that were perhaps exposed that he learned from. So I think depending on what happens with the rest of the search will affect how Larry's candidacy is perceived. I really hope that he's able to continue at Penn State in one capacity or another.
ESPN reporting Friday afternoon that Penn State's top three candidates are James Franklin from Vanderbilt, Al Golden from Miami, Mike Munchak from Tennessee. As we're taping this, Mike Munchak apparently is meeting with Tennessee Titans officials. If he's fired in Tennessee, he's been in the NFL for 32 years. He really has no experience in terms of college coaching, college recruiting, dealing with the college level player. Would Mike Munchak be a good fit for you?
Probably depends on, again, what happens to the guys that are perceived as better candidates or that have more college experience. I think those other guys would be. But and it also depends on what kind of staffs are these guys going to be able to assemble. I think they need to be able to answer that in the interview immediately. Who's going to be your quarterback coach if you're not going to be the guy who's known as the quarterback mentor, which Cutcliffe may be. Golden probably isn't. So they're going to have an answer for that, I think, reasonably soon, because the face of your program is Christian Hackenberg.
Right. Now, Al Golden at Miami, I think James Franklin would be a great candidate, but again, my concern would be he might leave after 2 or 3 years.
Well, I think the thing is, you can't hire him with that. The selection committee, they're not going to give a generous buy. They're not going to make the arrangements with the next guy that they made with Bill.
So Al Golden, to me, would be a good fit in a lot of ways, but he's got the number 5 recruiting class in the country coming into Miami. He only makes $2.1 million. I would think that Penn State would be able to pay more than that. Plus, he can play in front of 100,000 fans. Miami's got some issues with the stadium and everything like that. Al Golden has to consider this. Is the Miami job better than his alma mater that he could come in and stay for 10, 15 years?
I would say the answer to that would be no. I mean, you have Florida State that's on the rise and kind of dominating the ACC. And just as Bill Obrien felt this was an opportunity that he couldn't pass up, I would have to think Al Golden, whose wife is from Pennsylvania, I think Lock Haven or the Bellefonte area, I think you're dealing with a dream scenario for him that he has to answer. Is this his destination job? And I think it's going to be really hard for him to walk away from that kind of offer, if they offer it to him.
Let's close with some final thoughts on Bill Obrien. I think the guy did an exceptional job here, as good as you possibly could have imagined under these circumstances. But in some ways, the fan base is very, very upset with him leaving. I think there's been a disconnect with the fans understanding maybe Bill O'Brien's intentions. I've thought all along, especially since the sanctions came down, this is an NFL guy. I don't understand maybe why the fans just didn't realize he was going to leave eventually as soon as the right offer came along. But people were thinking with their heart that Penn State's a good place. He's got to go, and maybe he'll stay 8 or 10 years. At no point in the last year and a half did I ever believe Bill Obrien was going to be here longer than 2 or 3 years.
Right, but I think people may have perceived that when he jumped, if he jumped this soon, it would be for an Eastern job where he's been based. Going to Houston now, it does have a tremendous situation with the first pick and a good history and apparently great ownership. I think, and obviously it got bumpy in the end. You leave after 2 years, some remarks were made, and I'm sure in frustration. So, there's a bruise there that may take time to heal as far as every universal acceptance of the 2-year body of work, obviously on the field. But sometimes when you're impatient and when you're a guy that has that knows it's kind of a springboard job, you kind of coach that way and you maybe hire that way. And so you're not sitting back realizing, I'll handle each problem as it comes in a long-term situation. I'm not going to, this guy he had a timetable for himself, and he kind of coached and acted like that at times.
Let me close with this. I think that this is a very, very good job right now. It's a much better job than it was 2 years ago, but there is the reality of the Paterno faction comments that Bill Obrien made. Do you think that there will be any impact on coaches who might be interested in this job, that they would look at those comments that Obrien made a month ago with maybe his foot out the door already and realize that, because again, all things, you take a look at the whole job. I think it's a very good job and they can do some good things, but it is still a very slippery, difficult, delicate situation that a coach is going to come in here if you've got some so-called Paterno people that might be against it.
Yeah, I don't know that, and I'm not even sure it's just the Paterno people were against him. I think it was the whole situation, the infighting on the board, uncertainty about the president, the AD. They botched the presidential search a month or two ago, which that's a big deal. That may have been somebody that could have come in and connected with Obrien in November, and Obrien built some kind of rapport with this guy for all we know. So I think following the legend is always kind of be there, but I think it was more the uncertainty of who's going to be the AD, what's Joyner like to work with, things like that the next guy will have to be wary of, and that's where somebody that has a Penn State heart might be able to look past some of those things that Bill maybe didn't.
It's Friday when we're taping this. I think they've got a hire by maybe Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, it seems like they're moving. They're trying to move as quickly. They've got to piece together, keep the team together. And of course, they're good at this, or at least they've had experience doing this.
They're secretive about it.
But they got to make sure. One thing I want to give Joyner a little bit of credit here, because there may have been situations in the past where they wished Bill Obrien well in a press release, said a national search will begin immediately, and that's all you would have heard. He at least got in front of everybody, listed the search committee. In fact, Wally Richardson's on it, which I thought was a good move too. So they've been a little bit more open than maybe they were once upon a time.
All right, we'll keep up with it on altoonamir.com. Neil and I will probably do a video next week whenever the new coach is hired as well. Thanks for tuning in.